So welcome back everyone to our coaching cafe for today, and we're looking at how our coaching conversations can be taken to the next level. And it's Natalie Ashdown here with you from Open Door Coaching, and it's wonderful to see you all coming on the line. So before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians on the lands on which we meet today and their continuing connection to the land, waters and communities of Australia. And we pay our respects to them and to their elders past, present and emerging. If you are here because you are very keen to learn, that is a great thing. You might also be collecting your ICF CCE hours. And yes, this webinar does count towards that. Simply send us a message to support@opendoorcoaching.com.au after listening, and we can send that CCU certificate out to you. So, as I mentioned today, we're going to be really focusing on the 5 levels of coaching conversations that we can actually have. And for those of you that listened to our last webinar, making sure that we really are focusing on our communication and high quality communication as coaches, but also as we coach managers and leaders in the workplace. It's a true trend that we're seeing and something that is really necessary as we go along. Particularly, for this year after what we've had last year, of course. And so today we want to be looking at the 5 levels of coaching conversation. I'll introduce those to you if you haven't seen them before, but also we've got an amazing alumni on the line. So I'm really excited to be able to generate great coaching questions together. And then this can actually be a resource that we all use and create together. So if you are new to the Coaching Cafe, welcome. We are all about creating a community of alumni and coaches who come together. We come together every Friday at 12 noon Melbourne time to share our learnings, to share and create a learning experience with each other, to provide thought-provoking conversations on coaching in the workplace, coaching tools, and other great topics as well. As I mentioned, if you are interested in CCEUs, please just contact us at support@opendoorcoaching.com.au. And whether you're listening to this and participating in this webinar live, or you're listening to this via the webinar, or you might be podcasting. So welcome if you are actually listening to our very new podcast. It's great to have you on the line. So here we go. Let's start with a cartoon. I love Scott Adams. As you will know, I love Dilbert cartoons. And this one, he says, everyone says your new circuit design is worse than the old one. And Dilbert responds, by everyone, do you mean you heard it from one person who doesn't like me and isn't familiar with the design? And then the pointy head boss says, I also spoke to the people who heard it from that one person. So I love this because, in our workplaces, little bits of communication can really take off, rumors, etc., etc. So we really are focusing on how can we bring a better level of coaching and a better level of conversation to our interactions. As I mentioned, you might be coaching people to actually have these better levels of conversation in the workplace, managers and leaders around you. But as coaches, we can also focus on it for ourselves. So there's 5 levels of coaching conversations that we're going to be looking at today, and I really encourage you to jump in and be part of this. If you want to interact, of course, please just pop a message into the chat box and we can pick up your questions and your comments as we go along. And of course, if you're listening to this online or via our podcast, take a moment at any time to pause and you can be thinking about and reflecting on the levels of conversation as we go through them. So level 1, the surface level. Level 2, the facts level. Level 3, the thinking level of conversations. Level 4, the feeling level of conversations. And level 5, that inner level of conversations. Let's take a look at each of them as we go along. So level 1, surface level conversations. These are just your basic level of conversations. I call them kind of stock standard, simple questions, simple responses, pretty uncomplicated. They're just kind of warm-ups, aren't they, really? Just questions that kind of initiate a conversation, like how's the weather out there? And then someone says, yeah, it's hot or it's cold or it's freezing. So surface level questions just really get the conversation started. what's really interesting is they get the conversation started. They don't necessarily help us build rapport, because people can just respond like, well, how was your day? Good. That doesn't really, build rapport. It's just kind of stock standard questions and stock standard answers. But they're important to get the conversation going. From there, we move into level 2 type conversations. And these are more facts-based conversations. So as we're going through these, you might be able to think about some questions, and then we're going to do an exercise together where we generate these questions at each of the levels. And this is what I'm most excited about working with you on. So at the second level of conversation, we're really just talking about collecting facts. So it's facts, it's detailed. People feel in the workplace very comfortable to hang out at level 1 or level 2. Level 2 is, for example, things like, well, how many people were involved in the meeting? And the answer is 5 people, the manager and 4 direct reports. So facts-based questions, how many people, what happened today, those kind of questions that are asked where we check in on what's the status of something. We're gathering the facts, the data, the detail. And as I mentioned, a lot of people are quite comfortable hanging out there. Where we as coaches can really start to make a benefit, and where we as coaches become great sounding boards, is when we actually help our clients and managers and leaders in the workplace to move beyond just the surface and facts collection to level 3, which is the thinking level. Now, at this level, we've got more trust, we've got more rapport, and it's been sufficiently built so that if we ask a good quality question around thinking, people are actually able to offer their thinking, offer their opinions. And as you know, I can see all the amazing coaches that are on the line and that are listening. As you know, coaching sets up a fantastic opportunity to be able to allow people to think without having to feel like they're being judged. So they can express what they're thinking, express an opinion, express their attitude on something in a safe environment without judging. And it's one of the most important things that we actually offer to our clients. When we're interacting with people in the workplace, when you're coaching managers to coach their people in the workplace, we're trying to get managers to hold back. So as you know, rather than jumping in and solving their problems, we're really trying to encourage managers to ask their people, well, what are you thinking? What are the options? What are the recommendations? And in this way, we get into the thinking of the people that we're working with, rather than managers directing and telling their people what to do. I've been working with a lot of groups recently in our Leader as Coach programs, and also in our Certificate 4 in Workplace and Business Coaching programs. And a lot of you on the line have actually been through those programs. And you might remember those early days where we really were saying, no, it's not about us expressing our opinion. We've got to move from purpose-built problem solver, directing and telling people what to do, to really draw out what people are thinking. And this is one of the biggest hurdles I think that managers go through when they're actually, moving from a manager to being more as a coach. So something for us to be aware of as coaches if you are coaching people, particularly managers that are making that transition. So basic level 3 questions are things like, what do you think? What are the options? How do you think the group's responding? And then you get those answers back straight out of the head in terms of what people are thinking. Now, in the workplace, we've noticed that people are pretty comfortable with levels 1, levels 2, and level 3. Then there's a huge opportunity to actually take people to level 4. And I've been working with a wonderful group of lawyers recently, and they made it very clear to me that level 4, this feeling level, is way outside their comfort zone. And I do think, and you can tell me whether you agree in the chat box or not, I think they're not alone when it comes to level 4 feeling. So the lawyers were saying they're way outside their comfort zone. I've been working with a group from a military environment, and they're like, yeah, we don't really get into this level that often. So with that in mind, It's actually a really good idea. We would do it as coaches quite easily. We're comfortable with exploring this level 4 level with our clients, and it's where we can provide a lot of value. But what's interesting is when we're coaching managers actually to see whether they are comfortable or how they can become comfortable in asking level 4 feeling type questions. So let me know your thoughts about that as well. Yeah, Nathan, thank you. You said sometimes it's uncomfortable for people in the work environment, but also uncomfortable for them in their personal lives as well. Yes, and I think, COVID last year in particular, we had to really do this as leaders and as coaches. We had to check in with people on how they were going in terms of their emotions, how they were going in terms of how they were feeling about the situation, not just about thinking. So I think COVID and lockdowns and everything that we faced last year enabled us to do a bit more of this, but I don't think nearly enough. Emma, I think you've brought up a really good point there. She said, is it because they aren't sure how to deal with the answers that come from asking the question? And I agree with you 100%. Yes, I think that is the case. That was the feedback that we got from the lawyers, is that they were not comfortable with the answers. So if I'm not comfortable with the answers, I don't know how to deal with it. I'm not sure what to expect. When I ask these questions, then I'll actually avoid asking the questions. So you're spot on there. Yeah. And Marie, thank you for that comment. You said it's moving away from black and white technical answers to shades of grey. There's no correct way of asking the question, is it? And it is harder for industries which rely on yes, no responses. I really agree with you there. And thank you for jumping in. You say that some people aren't good at knowing how they feel. Yeah, and actually tapping into that, in addition to being, having discomfort there. And I know with your wealth of knowledge and experience, you'd see that a lot. A guy has agreed. For anyone who has worked with lawyers, it's not surprising. But I highlight the lawyers, but they are definitely not alone when it comes to this level. And we're talking about the level of conversation, as you've picked up, that is about sharing the feelings either from our heart or from our gut. It's about understanding and sharing the impact and the challenges that we're experiencing. So not just what we're thinking, but what we're feeling about something. Are we feeling angry? Are we feeling frustrated? Are we feeling disappointed? Are we feeling out of control? So there's those kind of feelings. Let's get a grip and start to understand those. But also, what about the positive emotions like joy and excitement and pride? I was coaching a manager just yesterday, and I offered him that a really great question we can ask is, what are you most proud of? Like, what are your achievements and what are you proud of? And how do you feel having achieved those things over the last quarter? And he was saying to me basically, okay, hang on a second, slow down a bit there. Let me write those questions down. And that was a bit of mentoring. So I was doing a little bit of coach training, a little bit of mentoring. But what was really interesting is that he said he'd never really taken the opportunity to stop and ask those questions. And they're really important. What do we feel in terms of what we've achieved? How proud are we? Rather than just moving on with the next goal or moving on with the next task. So how will you feel when you've achieved that goal? It's a powerful question that we can ask as coaches. And I'm sure you roll that into your question bank all the time. So level 4, an area that we as coaches can make a huge difference to our clients. How are you feeling about that? What is happening inside? What are those emotions that you're expressing? Where's that coming from? They're really powerful questions we can ask. Thank you, Andrea. You've jumped in there and said there can be different perspectives from how do you feel compared to how did the group feel. So that's a really good question, isn't it? A really good opportunity to create self-awareness. You may be feeling great with what's happened, but let's get some feedback from the group and check in with them. So that's terrific as well. Tanya, thank you for jumping into the chat as well. It's wonderful to have everyone's knowledge and experience coming to the fore in our coaching cafes. This is what we're all about. It's not just me talking, it's about gathering your ideas as well. You say it's so powerful when you start to do work with these discussions, but it can be difficult to navigate. Some areas can become quite triggering for others, so careful discussion is integral, as is having a debrief capacity and/or EPA, Employee Assistance Programs, for referrals if needed. It's best to introduce slowly, build trust, and provide support. Yes, absolutely. So these questions can open up, as you say, areas that we as coaches may not be qualified to actually talk about and engage in. And that's where a referral process, referring to the employee assistance programs, is really important. I make it really clear, actually, unlike some of you on the line, psychologists and counsellors and trauma specialists, I'm not a counsellor. So I am trained in mental health first aid training, but that doesn't qualify me to have some of these other conversations. So thank you for jumping in there. It's very important that we're aware of our boundaries from that point of view. Thank you. So level 5, when we're thinking about level 5, those inner type of questions, this is the level of conversation. Actually, it's the most personal level. It's where people share their values, their lessons, or their learning. It really can be a level of vulnerability. And at the same time, it's really truly a level of where we see authenticity from a manager's point of view or from a leadership point of view, where the person shares who I am and what I stand for. And if any of you are coaching leaders through the challenges and the change that was happening last year, and that's flowed into this year as well, this is where leaders are trying to really understand, well, I'm going through these changes and I have to lead people through these changes. So how do I want to be as a leader? It's a beautiful question. How do I want to authentically live the organizational values and at the same time achieve what we need to achieve given everything that's going on? So I really do like to ask the questions when a client is sharing with me a lot of information about what they have experienced or giving me an update on what's been happening. I like to link a question in here, particularly if I've built rapport and been coaching a person for some time. You can do this with managers and people around you that you know well as well. It's lovely to ask a reflection question here. What did you learn from that situation? So you've achieved all this, or you've been through those changes, or you've gone through that situation or that difficult. What have you learned as a leader? What have you learned from the situation? How did that situation shape you as the leader you are today or the leader you want to be? And some of you may have experienced clients where they've been through a difficult period, and I've had clients answer this question to say, well, I certainly know how I don't want to be as a leader. I'm pretty clear that that's not how I want to treat people. That's what I don't want to be as a leader. And then, of course, we can ask the lovely reframe question about, well, what does that mean now in terms of your leadership moving forward? So there's some lovely inner kind of questions we can ask there when we've really built rapport. A fantastic opportunity to allow the person to reflect, get closer to the values, get closer to who they are as leaders. Of course, with the clients we're coaching and with the leaders that we're interacting with in the workplace as well. So there you have it. We've got the 5 levels of conversation, but our work is not finished yet. I want to introduce you all to this little tool, and we'll do this very quickly because we started a little bit late, but not to worry. I'll do this very quickly. I want to introduce you to this little tool, and the tool actually allows us to generate questions together, and it's called Ideas Board. And I'm going to drop a link into the chat box now. And if you click on this link, you can add questions into the Ideas Board, and feel free. This little tool was given to me by one of our clients. It's a free tool, and I use it all the time to generate that interaction that we want to see sometimes on webinars such as these. So if you haven't used Ideas Board before, here's an extra little tool that you might enjoy. So I'm just going to stop my share for a moment. And if you're listening to this during a podcast, this is a great opportunity actually to pause and generate some questions for you as well. So it won't be 1 minute. Let me pull up the Ideas Board, drop this into the chat for you. Okay, here we are. So I'm popping a link into the chat box here. And if you click on that link, the ideas board will come up, and I'm going to share my screen now to show you that. And this is where we can actually generate questions together. So all you need to do if you are playing along at home in the workplace, and if you're listening to this on the podcast, as I mentioned, great time to pause and generate some questions for yourself. All you need to do is click on the little button and we can generate questions together. So surface level questions, for example, are just like how's the weather out there, that kind of thing. So I'll just type that in. And if you want to type in a question, feel free to just jump in. I always get a bit, gotta watch my typing here. There you go. So, or if you can't access the board, if you can't see it, that's okay. Chuck your questions, throw your questions into the actual chat box, and I can pick them up as we go as well. Yeah, hopefully you can see a link. Oh, sorry, Mark, I haven't copied it to everybody. I've only sent it. Here we go. Thank you for that pickup. Send a message to everybody. Here we go. All right. Hopefully, thanks, Mark. Hopefully you can see that now. You got it. Thanks for pointing out. So hopefully everyone can see that now. And feel free to jump in now. So pop a message into the chat. I can pick up your questions, or we can just generate these questions together. And let's just do this for the next 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll finish up together. So let's go for it. There's heaps of people on the line. Generate any questions you like. Exactly. Someone's jumped in there. What did you do on the weekend? How are the kids? If they've got kids, of course, be careful about that one. Yeah, absolutely. Facts-based questions. What is the status? Can ask that question. Where are you up to on XYZ? Great, someone has jumped in. Feel free to, here we go. It'll update as we go. Where are you up to on such and such? How long did that project take you? That's a great facts question. How long did the task take you? Or how long will it take you? And what I can actually do is copy this, and I'll put a link into the chat box, and of course you can download it. If you're listening to this online via our podcast, don't worry, we're going to actually make this available to you as well. So level 3 thinking, what do you think we could have done differently? You know, that is one of my favorite questions. So thank you for whoever put that in. So what do we need to do differently? How do you think the project went? Yeah, that's a great question as well. Level 4 feeling questions are coming in now as well. How do you feel about that? How do you want to feel at the end of the goal? What a great question. So pushing the person forward, thinking about, well, how do you want to feel once you've achieved that? And what I like about that question is you're not inserting like, how good would it feel? How wonderful will it feel? You're just saying, how do you want to feel? And how will it feel at the end of that? So that's very nice coaching there. Thank you. Another feeling, other level 4 questions are coming in here. What's the overall feeling you had at the time? What a great question. So we're not actually stating what the feeling was, but what's the overall feeling we've had at the time? Another level 4 feeling question. What comes up for you when you think about that experience? I love it. This is what I love about the coaching cafes, honestly. So much great knowledge and experience on the line that we can do this together. Here come the level 5 questions. Some of you have moved to that. How does that decision align with your core values? What a great question to ask someone. So what are your core values? What are your core values? What values are driving this decision? And then how does that decision align with your core values? So I love that. What What core values are driving this decision? And we will find that we need to delve into that often with our clients. It's a lovely level 5 question. What did you learn about yourself when doing this work? Lovely. Let's go back. We've got some more surface. I've got some more facts questions coming in here now. Level 2. How large is the work group? How many people do you need to complete that work? Excellent question. So they're just standards to kind of collect that data and facts kind of questions. How long did the task take you, or how long will it take you? What have you done so far? So I love these questions, obviously, because they're open questions. Rather than saying, did you do it? Yes, no, they're nice and open as well. So this is terrific. Thank you. What will you be doing during that time? What have you done so far? Great questions. How will you measure it? Another great question. We can think about the SMART goal there as well. Oh, that's a lovely one, Marie. Where do you think that one should go? You've said, how do these bigger organizational decisions align with your desires or align with your own aspirations? I think it's definitely like a level 4 or level 5 question. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Maria's agreed to level 5. How do you, a couple other thinking questions. What options do you have? Excellent. So thinking, what do you think? What are your recommendations? What options? Let's go with our classic grow model questions there as well. Absolutely. A couple more minutes before we finish up, just because we started a little bit late. Other feeling questions. Yeah, really great. So someone has offered, how excited were you about this? So, you can add a scaling question in there too, on a scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you? How worried are you? How confident are you? So take that feeling that the person is actually exploring and put a scaling question in there is really nice. Yeah. How do you think others were feeling while that was going on? What a great self-awareness, self-reflection question you might need to ask someone as well. How do you feel about returning? This is a really great question too. Thank you for whoever offered it. How do you feel about returning to the work back in the office? And that's very good, because we know that some people cannot wait to get back into the physical office. Others don't want to, and others, I was talking to a client just yesterday. She said it feels like the vibe is missing there. It feels like something's missing. So it's nice to be able to talk through that with people as well. Beautiful. Oh, someone's added a level 5 in a question here. What strengths or experiences can you tap into? And another lovely one, how does this approach align with your leadership values? So there's so much so many great questions there. Thank you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to screenshot this right away for you. And then you will have this as a resource that you can take away. Just give me 1 second. As I mentioned, if you are keen to use this little tool, it's called Ideas Board. It's just ideasboard with a Z.com. It's a free tool, and we are using it for a lot of different things, just to, it just helps with the interaction like we've just done here. Edit, copy, and here it comes for everyone. I'm going to stick it into the chat box here. To all panelists, Control V. Oh, maybe I can't do that. Just give me 1 second. Oh, won't let me cut and paste. Just shows you that what we are doing is live here, by the way. Why can't I cut and paste? No, all right, not to worry. We'll put it up on our blog for you. So if you go to our website, you'll see the blog for this actual presentation, and you'll be able to catch up with it there as well. So there you go, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our webinar today, or if you're listening on our new podcast, that's very exciting. Thanks for joining us. As always, reach out to us if you've got any thoughts or questions. Also, reach out to us if you think you have any topics that you'd like to cover, because we really want to make sure that the topics that we are offering you are in line with what you'd like to learn and how you'd like to spend your time on a Friday afternoon, or if you're listening at home, in whatever environment you're listening. So I can export it as a PDF. Yes, I can. Let me just try that. If you want to hang on just 1 second, everybody. Guy's jumped in as well. I know I can do that. So if anyone wants to hang on the line for 1 more minute, let me see if I can PDF it. Otherwise, we can always put it up on our blog as well. But for now, let me say thank you to you all. Wonderful to have you join. Thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge and experience. And I look forward to catching up with you at our next coaching cafe. So hold on the line. Let's see if we can grab that. Let's see if we can grab that board for you. And yes, I love the interaction. So thank you everybody for jumping in and sharing your wealth of knowledge and experience. Have a great Friday if you're listening to this live. If you're listening to it on the podcast, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.